All right. Well, welcome to the review. The recording for the ones that didn't show up. Uh, okay. It's not really a review. You guys already had the experience with me. Um, however, here's the information you need to know. It's going to be on April 21st at 3 p.m. So it's an early exam. That's a Tuesday, which also is not the same day as normal class. It's in P210. Um, second floor P building, halfway down the hall. If I remember right, it's on the left side, but I'm not 100% sure, depending which direction you're coming in, obviously. It's an hour and a half, um, 40 questions. And I pulled up an old version of the exam. That's what we're going with, one that has been used in a while. Um, pretty safe at this point to reuse an exam that's that old, because the content hasn't changed. Historically, most people finish this exam in like 45 minutes. So being very generous with the time. 40 questions for an hour and a half, that's a lot of time per question. That's like 2.5 minutes a question. Obviously, no aids or devices. Those go away. Those are the usual rules. Bags on the floor. I don't want them at the front of the room. Be responsible for the contents of your bag. When it's at the front of the room, I'm sort of responsible for it. I'd rather it be under your desk. It only covers weeks 9 to 13, or lectures 9 to 13, I should say. Not weeks 9 to 13, because this is 13 today. Bring something to drink. I prefer clear containers whenever possible. Bring the usual things if you're not feeling well. Kleenex, cough drops, etc. as needed. If you aren't able to attend due to illness, which is not written in here, please notify before the start of the exam. The other thing I'm going to ask too is if you're running late, send me an email, because after the first person leaves, you don't get the right, and that has happened recently in the last 2 years to me, and I really felt like crap saying no to the person. Um, and as usual, I'm going to ask everybody to stick around for half an hour. I bet you a second the half hour goes up, half the class will just get up and leave. Okay, so that's the usual stuff. Here's the breakdown. 6 questions, and these are approximate, not exact, but 6 questions about backups, 10 questions about security, 13 questions about transactions, and 13 questions about triggers and functions. You can obviously see which of the 4 topics is the most important. And some example questions you might see. What's the principle of least privilege? And then it's multiple choice. What's a transaction? When are functions compiled as opposed to store procedures? When does a before trigger fire? Those are the kinds of questions you will see. There's some of the other questions. There's a couple of questions where there's a block of code. It says, is this going to do what you expect it to do? Is it going to work the way you expect it to work? Yeah, have a seat. No, I'm gonna all the important stuff. Um, I'm just gonna, I'm just everything I'm putting on this. I'm gonna copy paste. Uh, but anyways, as a quick review, because I know the people that are going to be watching this online aren't going to listen to the first 2 minutes, anyways. Um, exams on the 21st at 3 p.m. in P210. It's in Access. Oh, I'm actually going to take this and paste it right in Access. Right in Brightspace. So you'll have it as is. It's an hour and a half long, but it's only 40 questions. I'm reusing an old exam with just some minor tweaks. Um, really old exam. Um, there's no practice exam this time. I don't have one for you. Well, actually, I do have one, I guess, but I don't know if it's actually going to really prepare you for this one. Um, historically, as usual, I'm going to ask people stick around for the first half hour in case there's any stragglers. But if I get a full head count, then that's fine. Historically, it's been less than 45 minutes for this whole test. It covers lectures 9 to 13 only. So you don't, as if after, before the break, pretend never even happened. No aids or devices of any kind, so all the gadgets go away. If you got fancy Facebook glasses, those go away. Um, Smartwatches go away. Hey, I know, but some people have them, and it's like when you see somebody going like this during a test, or are they doing this during a test? No. Bags on the floor because I don't want to be responsible for the contents of your bag. Group is small enough that the odds of somebody stealing a bag is pretty small, but there's been times when we had large groups, like group of 400 students in the gym, like maybe 300 students in the gym, and at the end somebody's looking for their bag and their bag's gone because their bag looked just like somebody else's, and the person grabbed the wrong bag, which was bad for the other person because their wallet and their ID and everything was in the bag. So bags under the floor, on the floor. Bring something to drink. You know, if you're not feeling well, bring paper, Kleenex, cough drops, etc. as needed, so you're not too irritating. I was just doing the breakdown of the questions. 6 about backups, 10 about security, roughly 13 about transactions. Triggers and functions also about 13. So you can see that these two are the meat of the exam. Actually, these numbers don't add up right. 26, somewhere in here. That's why it's an approximate because some of these overlap. Sample questions. What's the principle of least privilege? Multiple choice. What's a transaction? When a function is compiled? When there's a before trigger, fire off. There is a couple of questions with code where it says, here, read the code. Is it going to do what you think it's going to do? Yes or no? Or when is this trigger going to fire? Does this function do what it's, that kind of thing. And the exams are sitting in my bag. I just picked them up. So they're here just like last time. Um, the It's should be a fairly straightforward question. It's a tried and true test. Um, in the sense that the questions have been reviewed multiple times and there was no weird questions. And they're fairly understandable for non-native English. Um, so there's that. Okay, I'll take a look and see if I've got a practice test for you, but I really don't know if it's going to help you for this. I could give you the test we ran last semester. Um, I honestly don't know how useful it'll be, but hey, it'll give you a chance to test whether or not you understand the material. So, or you could just feed all the slide decks into Copilot and ask you to generate an exam for you. No, really, and it actually does a pretty good job. As long as you tell it to scramble, because it'll use A and B only as the answers. You have to tell it, make sure you use C and D also. Don't ask me how I know. I have done that to actually generate practice tests for people. Get it to ask you questions and stuff. Yeah, I mean that's a good way to say, that's a good way to use AI to study. That's cool. Which AI is that? Notebook LM. Google? I've never heard of it. That's cool. I like that. Hang on, I'm sending myself a message so I can look at it. He's doing the same thing. You know what? I'm constantly learning new things. Notebook LM, I'm assuming spelled like that. There, done. There. Thank you for teaching me something new. That's why I like talking to students because every semester I learn something new. Even though I've been at this for, come September 6th, it'll be 20 years. Okay, so that's the exam. So any other questions about the exam? No, you're good. Only 2 people here, so sucks for whoever's not here. You don't get to ask questions. Okay, so Now, the demo I'm going to do, as I said, is I'm going to do a demo about triggers to show you guys how they behave and how they interact. Um, and then when I'm done, I'm actually going to post the triggers to Brightspace so you have them as reference. Now, what I'm doing is I got a set of tables, basically 4 tables. And in these tables, I've got apparently a list of drugs in one and a product, orders, order lines, and allocations. Now, most people never really think about when stuff gets shipped to you, what happens in the warehouse. Most people go to a store, they go to buy, and shit's going to show up at my door, and depending if it's Amazon, could be within a couple of hours. Um, Literally, I've had that happen where I placed an order at 10, it was at my door at 12:30. It was amazing because it wasn't supposed to arrive till 3, same day, 3 o'clock, and it showed up at 12:30. I'm like, somebody was bored that day. Um, when you buy something that comes from a warehouse, there's something called allocations because when they manage inventory in a warehouse, the thing is you go. I'm going to use Amazon's not a good example per se, um, but like a T-shirt shop, like like where I got this shirt from, for example, T Turtle. Before they went to on-demand printing, they used to have inventory. And the way it works is they would get a bunch of t-shirts made, they get packaged up and put on a shelf. And each shelf would, this t-shirt size, small, medium, large, and be a shelf for each one, bins of each shirt. Um, when you placed your order and you say, I want one of these, and you check out, the thing is that that shirt doesn't magically appear in a bag and get shipped the second you hit checkout. It gets processed. However, somebody else could go to order the shirt and suddenly it's out of inventory, even though the shirt is still sitting on the shelf. Because what happens is when you check out, it allocates one to you. And the way it works is they have whatever's on hand minus what's been allocated is what's available for sale. Once the product's been put in a bag and a shipping label is printed and the shipping label is applied to the bag, then it'll decrement it's technically been shipped. It's no longer the warehouse's responsibility. Therefore, at that point, it becomes the on hand gets decremented permanently. So then it becomes on hand minus whatever's been allocated because it's been shipped. So when you go to shop, what it does is it looks at what's on hand minus what's been allocated. That's what you get to see, as in what's available to buy. When it ships, it actually decrements the value of on hand permanently. So then it's really gone out of the building. And this is what this is going to do, these triggers. They're actually going to do the allocations for you automatically. Um, and so right now I don't have any orders. I don't have any order lines. I have no allocations. It's all empty. And what happens is I'm going to pull up my first trigger and I'm going to go through it on screen here first. The first trigger would be we need to make sure we can actually allocate the things. So sometimes what will happen is you put stuff in your shopping cart, she puts something in the shopping cart, 10 other people put stuff in the shopping cart, and then you check out, she checks out, and then one of the other 10 people, they go to check out and suddenly, whoop, we don't have any. Why? Because it actually got allocated and suddenly they can't check out because they can't sell it because they don't have any. A proper system would probably allow negatives for back orders, but we're going to be super simple where there's none, there's none. So here's how this logic works is there's a trigger that's before insert on order lines. So before we add something in the order lines table, so it's sitting in the shopping cart, but it hasn't gone into the order lines yet. So the person you go to check out. And the way the checkout process works is it takes a hold on your credit card. If it succeeds, it creates the order lines. If that fails, it reverses the hold, usually, if it works right. So it's saying before the insert on the order line, for each row being inserted, we are going to declare 3 variables: what's on hand, what's been allocated, and what's available. And then you go select quantity into on hand. So we are going to say, hey, how many we have? Well, so if I go look at products really quick again, so select star from products. You see, here's our on hand quantity, and we're going to pick something that's pretty low. Vitamin D. There we go. Prescription vitamin D. There's 9 of those in the warehouse. So when we go, we just got to remember ID number 4. Um, so it's going to pull in. You're going to get the door. Okay, that is recording. I was scared I didn't hit the record button there for a second. Um, so the first thing it does is it retrieves from products how much is on hand, as in what we mean on hand is what's in the building. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add up all the allocations for that product. So if there's 3 people that have bought it, that means there's 3 allocations. We need to add them all up. So then we're going to add them all up. So we're going to do a sum of the quantity, and we're going to put an allocated. Now, MySQL is kind of weird because if it doesn't find it, it sets this to null. Now, let me tell you, for the first time I did this trigger, I did it live in front of a group of students, and I hit some bugs, and it took me a long time to figure out what was happening. I was actually doing a lot of these signal states here to pop up error messages in the log. That's when I discovered that when MySQL does this, um, if it doesn't find anything, it returns a null. And what happens if you go 9 minus null? 9 minus null is equal to null. 9 minus the absence of value equals, it's impossible to do, therefore it's all an absence of value. So you'll notice right here is if the allocated is null, I set it to 0 so that I actually have a proper subtraction, because it was actually giving a weird error message. So then I'm pre-setting up that if allocation is null, it sets it to 0. In theory, I could put a coalesce around this. I could write as a function as the SQL. Coalesce is cool. Coalesce is if it returns a null, it turns it into something else. So I could take care of it as just pure SQL, but when I was doing the demo, I wanted to demonstrate the if-then logic in here too. So if it's null, it sets it to 0. We go set available equal to on hand minus allocated. And then we go if available is less than the new quantity. So suddenly, let's say there's 9 on hand and we asked for 10. If the amount available is less than what I just asked for, there has to be an error. It'll raise an error message saying insufficient inventory. So I'm going to create this trigger. And I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to come into here and paste it. And then I go select all, run. Okay, no errors. It's been debugged. First, I'm going to create an order, insert into orders. What the heck do I need for this? Order date. Order date of values now. Okay, and now if I go pull up orders, we have one order. Fantastic. Now I'm going to go insert into order lines, order ID, product ID, quantity. I think that's what my order lines table has. Yeah. Values. 1 for the order ID. We said we're going to play with product 4, and we're going to insert 1. Okay, and I'm going to go run this. Apparently it's not QTY, it's quantity. I'm going to run this again. All right, 1 row affected, no error message. We haven't created allocations yet. So I'm going to go select star from here to show yes, it went in. Now I'm going to go back to my query here. No, not that one. But this time I'm going to ask for 12. And I'm going to run it. insufficient inventory. It's returning an error. Asking, hey, can you do whatever? And if I look at the products again, orders, products, let's start from here. If I look at number 4, there's 9. I asked for 12. 9 minus 0 is 9. Is 9 less than 12? Yes. Error. Fairly straightforward concept, very basic programming concept. Our before check works. Now I need to purge out my inventory. Because I'm not doing the allocations yet. So we're going to do this again. We're empty. And here's our insert. Okay. Now we're checking if we have inventory. Cool. The next trigger is doing the actual allocation. This trigger is super short. So after insert, so after we've added the rows to the database successfully, because if it doesn't get inserted properly because there's an error or whatever, we don't want to create an allocation for it because then we have orphaned allocations. Yeah. No, the trigger is once you create it, it's permanent. Yeah. Like these triggers, when they're in the database, like if I come here and I go look at the order lines table here and I go refresh, refresh all, you'll see in order lines, the triggers here now. And this being MySQL Workbench, I can't even look at it. We used to be able to. We used to be able to actually right click on it and edit it, but now just no. Can I do properties for this though? Table maintenance, triggers. There's the trigger. I can see the trigger. I can't change it. They've taken away. Remember I was talking about how stupid my Oracle's being with this product? You got to keep a copy of the code if you want to change it. You can't just, in other tools you can. Like if I use DataGrip, for example, it's just MySQL Workbench looks nicer for the presentation. If I come here and I go here, tables, order lines, nope. Fresh. Oh, there's the trigger. This guy, I should be able to, wow, they took even this is gone. But there you go. This one, at least I could open it and actually I change it in the tool. It's just different tools do the same thing. Okay, so no, absolutely not. There's a way to look at the content of the trigger from the command prompt. Actual fact, if I looked at somewhere in here, there's a way to view what that query was. I just don't remember what it is. Somewhere. It's not this. Notification, commit, run. Yeah, there's an option for it somewhere. I just don't remember where it is. They've changed the look of this application since the last time I used it. And I don't know where it went, but there's a way to actually see what commands it's sending out to the other backend. But yeah. All right, so neither here nor there. It's unfortunate the tool does the real tool for Oracle doesn't let me actually use it, do it like you're supposed to. Okay, so Now we're going to create the after insert. So after we successfully added a row to the database and it's been written to the table, we want to create the allocation, right? Because we don't want to create the allocation until we know the data is in the database. So after the insert, we're going to add an entry into allocations. And we need to know the order line ID, which is again, why we need to be after, because we don't have an ID for the order line before. We need to know the quantity and what product it is. It's the world's shortest trigger. So I'm going to go back to here, paste it, and run it. Just like that. Okay. So now I am going to add add an order line for 2. I'm going to hit run. It got added. But now if I go look at my allocations, there's the product, the quantity, and the order line for it. This data was created automatically for us. I didn't do that insert. The trigger did the insert. Now, go. The next one, the person ordered 5 of these. So run it again. That was okay. So now plus 5 is 7. And if I remember right, there's 9. So I am going to try to insert 5 again. Insufficient inventory. Now, even though there is 9 here, 9 minus 7 is now, there's only 2 left. I asked it for 5, therefore 5 is more than 2, therefore we can't fulfill this order as it stands. Allocations are getting created the way they're supposed to. And as you can see, it need to be fancy code. I mean, honestly, we should probably have some extra checking in here, but this is the gist of it. Then the last one is where it gets really complicated. This trigger is a little bit more involved. Okay. So this one's going to happen is it's on orders, not on the order line. When the order is shipped. So when we look at the orders table, you'll see an order shipped column. That's a date. So when this column gets a value, this trigger will fire off. So after it's updated, so the order is updated successfully for each row. Okay, maybe we're shipping more than one order at once. We are going to declare a bunch of variables. In actual fact, I actually have an improved version of this that's actually much more efficient. But this is the original one. So there's a product ID, order line ID, exit loop, because remember I was describing, sometimes you got to do handlers for when things go horribly wrong. Allocated available and the new available. I'm going to declare a cursor for order lines. Okay, so I'm shipping an order. I need to update the allocations for every product in that order. If there's, actually, you know what? Let's go and let's go put in product 5 and product 6 in that order. So now if I go reload my allocations, you'll notice that order line 2, 3, and 4, which if we go look at the order lines, 2, 3, and 4, so basically order ID 1 has 4 products in it. Okay, and we have 4 allocations. Order lines 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. When we ship this order, we have to decrement the inventory for each product in the order. So that brings us back to our trigger. So we're going to create a cursor for the order lines that belong to that order. So we're updating order 1. It's going to go say, okay, I want to have the product ID and the order line ID for each order, so each line in this order. We put our continue handler so that, we hit the end of order lines. We don't, the trigger doesn't blow up. It just exits gracefully. I'm doing a slightly different technique in this one than what you guys learned. I open up the cursor. So this is basically literally running the query. So for example, I copy this and I know I'm doing order ID 1. So if I put this here and I run this, it's going to give me, that's what my cursor is retrieving. Okay, so order line, product ID. In actual fact, I don't even need the product ID, but I have it because reasons. You'll notice right here, I've got this weird thing right in front of the loop. This is called a label. In MySQL, you can actually give loops names. So if you have nested loops, you learned about breaks, right? This is how you do a break in MySQL. We don't have a break. We have something called leave. So what you do is you give the loop, but you know, like in JavaScript, you go loop loop. When if you do break, you can do break or you can go break two. And what it'll do is it'll break. That's the level of the break. You can tell that to break 2 levels out instead of 1. I don't know if they taught you that, but you can actually tell break how many layers. That's so break can take a parameter, and you can tell it how many layers of break. You can break out. So let's say you got a loop and an if statement. You can actually go break 2, and it'll actually break out of the loop, not just out of the if statement. Just cool things. So in MySQL, you could do that also, but it's much more challenging. On the other hand, you can give it a label. So we named the loop allocation loop. So the loop actually has a name. So then I'm going to fetch in the cursor into the 2 variables. Now, do you notice right here, if exit loop? So in other words, if it hit the end, it sets it to true. Otherwise, it's false. Close. I'm being a good little citizen. I'm closing my cursor. Garbage collection. You really should close your just like in your code in Python or in PHP. If you get a database connection, you should close it before you terminate the program because garbage collection isn't always perfect. So it's better to do that. I close the cursor. I leave the loop. So I literally break out of the loop right here before we do anything else. If let's say we've fetched a record and we have data. This looks familiar. Select the quantity into allocated from allocations for that order line. If it's null, set it to 0 because bugs happen and things go wrong. Select quantity into available. So what we are going to do is now we're going to go grab what's on hand based on the order line ID. In theory, we could just use the product ID that we pulled from up here. But when I was doing this, I wanted to demonstrate we could use a subquery to grab this. It just shows you a bunch of different techniques in one thing. If available is null, set it to 0. In other words, it didn't find a product. That's bad. Set the new available to available minus allocated. Here there's a comment. Depending on what the business need is, either set it to 0 or allow a negative for back orders. So in here you could change the logic. In this case, we're saying there's no back orders. So therefore available is less than or equal to 0. Make sure it's always 0, just to be on the safe side. We update the product as a single new product. And we delete from the allocation. Now this is bad because realistically we can't see the history of the allocation. When was it allocated? When was it released? We're just cleaning out the allocation. A real system, it actually uses dates when it was filled out. And then we end the loop. And you'll notice right here, it actually uses the name of the loop also. And it ends. So I'm going to go and grab this, copy it into here. Yeah, that's fine. Go run. No error messages because that's good. Now I'm going to go update orders, set order shipped equal to now. All right, so which allocations do we have? Product 4, 5, and 6. So if we go look at our products, 9, 14, and 31. Um, just so that since we all our memories are like Swiss cheese, I'm taking a screenshot so I can prove my point when I'm done. Okay, so here's the original allocation values. And if I go look at the allocations and we run this, here's the 4 lines. Now I'm going to run this and hopefully I don't get an error. Right here, you'll see 1 row, 1 matched, 1 changed, 0 warnings. Let's go take a look at our products again. 4, 5, and 6. What was our original values? 9, 14, and 31. And now if we go look at our allocations, they're gone. Because we shipped it, we got rid of the allocations, they're gone. And that trigger took care of all of it for us. It's like magic. That's why I'm saying this isn't a really good example. The point of this example is to show you guys how they interact. A proper inventory allocation system, the allocations table should have a allocation fill date. Um, the products, the inventory shouldn't be in the products. There should be actually a separate table that tracks the inventory so we can do positives and negatives. It's called a ledger system where we just add up all the values. Um, when the allocation is fulfilled, we take the value of the allocation and we put it in the ledger, and suddenly it gets decremented that way, but the allocation lives forever. Um, we can track the order dates. Realistically, if we're talking something like Amazon, like most companies now, if you order stuff and the entire order isn't ready, they'll ship part of the order to you, and then they'll ship another part of the order later. That means that realistically it should be the shipping should be part of on the order line, not on the orders. There's all kinds of things you could do to make this better. But for the point of the example, this demonstrated in the simplest possible way. Now, I do have an improved version of these triggers, and I will actually put those up. Um, uh, trigger sample improved. The first part's the same. Second one's the same. It's a third one. Look how much shorter it is. Um, right here. That's what the improvement was. The first part, so if I go down here, you'll notice that after it has many fewer, it has fewer variables. Let's go with that phrase, right? So we got half as many variables. The cursor is the same. This part's the same. Actually, this whole part's the same. Like literally, like this is the same. So 54 through 68 is exactly the same as 51 through 65. Where the big difference is here. So see all this code here? From here to here? So that's what, so 20 lines of code was reduced to 3. Why is this better? Because triggers are not transaction safe in MySQL. There's a potential of while this trigger is running, another trigger is happening. And we end up with invalid data somewhere where then the values don't work anymore. But if we do it like this is a single SQL statement, so it'll be treated as one command instead of like 4. So what we're doing is we're updating the product, we're setting the quantity to be the quantity minus, and then here's our subquery. Coalesce the quantity from allocations for that order line. And if the quantity is null, it sets it to 0 because that's what coalesce does. Coalesce transforms, if it sees a null, it substitutes it, so it sets it to 0. So this will always be minus something valid. And then where this, so this 3 lines does the same thing these 20 lines do. But instead of being 1, 2, 3 queries, One query. It's actually, some people find this harder to understand, but it's more efficient. It's also safer because it's technically one transaction, like one command. Now, what could happen with this if there was triggers firing off on this, because it's possible to have triggers on a trigger, like a trigger on this on the products table that does something else, and then this one fails here. Bad things can just cleans up, and then the delete happens like it's supposed to. You got the end loop. I'll post both of these to Brightspace for you guys to peruse. For those that haven't done the trigger lab yet, this shows you everything you need to know to, like these three examples shows you everything you need. They're almost exactly like this. It shows you every technique you'd need to do the labs. Um, and you still have 2 weeks to do the labs, so it's good. Uh, week and a half. But so, do you have any questions about these triggers? I mean, when you look at if you took this and you converted this to Python or JavaScript, it'd be pretty short. You declare 3 variables because you're going to be nice, because we all know Python, JavaScript, and I'll throw PHP into the mix. You can just declare the variables and use them wherever you want. But you should really declare them. This would be a literally this whole thing here, this loop, plus this would be just a, if I were to write this in PHP, which is the language I'm most knowledge for, it'd be for each $ row equal, oh my God, what is it? MySQL fetch array, I think it is. Man, I haven't worked with MySQL in so long. $results. And up here you'd have $result is equal to um, MySQL. What is it? Query. I work with Postgres, so it's the commands are similar, but they're not quite the same. Select star from allocations where order line ID is equal to um, something like this. And in here you do stuff. I mean, it's close enough to MySQL to JavaScript that you could read it. It's C-like, just like JavaScript is. But essentially, this for each takes care of the exact same. It does the whole the cursor and open cursor. That's this line number 1. The declare handler, we don't need it because the fetch, also known as the for each, if this doesn't work, it returns a false. So once it becomes, as long as it's true, it does it. Second it becomes false, it dies. It's You can do the exact same thing in Python. I don't code in Python very regularly, so it'd be a mess. So so it's literally, there's not a single thing in here that you guys haven't seen in another language. It's just how it's just a different language. Um, so yeah, like I said, I'll post both examples to Brightspace so you can compare, and you got all the bits and pieces you need out of it. I'll post the SQL database that I used, the SQL to create the database, and then you can literally do the exact same thing if you want to experiment with it. And you can modify this and add columns and try to make it better if you want as a thought exercise. Um, but yeah. So this is pretty much it. I mean, one of the other classes I'm a lab for that's for Oracle, and they're assigned. They have an assignment, not labs. They actually have assignments, and they're actually writing. That's their assignment is this, um, but much more complicated because it's group work. Yeah. So as soon as I stop recording, I'll show you what their assignment looks like. But yeah, so Any questions about these triggers? No? Okay.